It takes a lot of work to teach young English language learners well. Learn more about effective training and professional development in this segment of the Colorín Colorado webcast, Preschool for English Language Learners. Hello, I'm Beth Ann Patrick. In the previous segments of this webcast, we discussed language and academic instruction for young English language learners, or ELLs. In this segment, we'll talk about what it takes to make that good instruction happen. Welcome, Dr. Becky Palacios.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You taught young children for more than 30 years. What skills and qualities does a preschool teacher of ELLs need to succeed?
Well, you need a quality professional development. Many people start out and they become really good, strong early childhood teachers, but they really don't have the training to become teachers of English language learners. So an important component is professional development if they're already in the classroom. Many seek to go back and get a certification, but many can't. So what we need to do as schools and school systems is support the teachers in the classrooms already that are using increasing numbers of professional development seminars to develop ideas on how to teach those children, use strategies and instruction that are appropriate for that population of children.
What are some of the challenges that preschool ELL teachers face on a daily basis?
Well, a lot of the challenges are, one, not being able to communicate with the families or communicate with the children. And that's one of the most difficult pieces, because then if you can't communicate with a child in another language, you don't know exactly where they are cognitively or language-wise. So those are some of the challenges that are huge at the very beginning. Where do I begin? How do I start? What can I do? And part of that is bridging it with families, using people that are in your community or in your school that can remain part of your team that you can trust, your counselor, your school nurse, your assistant principal or principal that can help provide some of that training that the teacher needs to be able to sustain that learning and growth in the classroom.
How does a preschool program recruit and retain the educators that can best meet the needs of the ELLs?
Well, again, it all begins with appropriate types of training. You just can't put any teacher in to work with English language learners. You have to have someone that's highly trained and highly skilled in using appropriate strategies and knowledge of child learning and development when it comes to language acquisition in that classroom. So to be able to recruit them, you need to either home grow them, use them in your school, or you need to recruit them from programs that are graduating those types of students. For example, one of the things that we did in our school is that as student teachers came to me in my classroom, I was able to mentor them and work with them in the classroom. But then one of the things that the university did well was to go ahead and leave them there for their student teaching year. They were able to either continue in that same year or the following year, learn from me or from the teachers that they were there with in a second year, learn about that school community, and we could do on-the-job kinds of training. So when they graduated, they were able to be hired back into our school and use that second language learning knowledge of how children grow and develop in that school community they were already familiar with.
Very, very smart. Let's imagine a preschool program with a growing ELL population and limited ELL experience. As more of the ELLs enroll, how does the program address this transition effectively?
Well, it all begins, I think, with the administrator, because if there are children coming in with special populations, special needs, then the school and the administrator needs to be fully versed in what to do and what resources to go seek. So I've worked with those types of school systems before, and what they have done is they have gone to either the state agency or they've gone to a university and said, look, this is what I'm facing. How do I get training for my teachers? What can I do? What are some of the resources available? And people like me have gone out as teachers leading other teachers in the classroom and working with them on a professional development component that is sustainable over time. Because you can't just go in and do, here's the training, okay, we're done. It's something that needs to occur for that professional over time as well, to be able to make sure that they're using appropriate strategies as situations change, how to work with families, how to work with programs, how to work with students.
Excellent. What are the roles of different members of the school community while making this kind of transition?
Well, all the school community needs to be fully aware of who your population is. So you need to know the culture, you need to know what those parents are facing, whether or not those parents have had any schooling, no schooling, are fearful of the American school system. Who is your population? So you begin with that type of maybe formal or informal survey of the people that you're going to be working with, because I think one of the hardest things is to make everything generic. You don't want to do that. I think that's the easy fix, rather. You just say, okay, these are English language learners, all the same. But in reality, everybody has a different type of experiential background. Every single person's coming to you with certain fears, certain needs, certain wants, certain expressions of expectations for that school. So everyone in that school community needs to be very supportive, whether it's a nurse because the children have some medical issues, or the librarian or the counselor. Paraprofessionals play a huge role in that classroom. Sometimes those paraprofessionals are the only person in that classroom who speak the native language. So they are an important bridge to the parent community, and they need to be highly trained as well to be able to sustain those types of communication links and to make them positive and welcoming and warm and nurturing.
You've been addressing this, but let's talk a little bit about how program leaders can build staff confidence while working with young ELLs.
Well, I know one of the things that we've done before is begin with team building. Because if you don't support the program and you don't support the changes that it's making, it's going to be really hard to be part of that program. And that's one of the things that I see. Change is very hard for people. Very hard. We're used to teaching the same way, do the same things over and over, but we forget we are changing. Technology has changed. I mean, 5 years ago, my cell phone was very different. And things are changing exponentially for children when it comes to science and technology. So if we can remember that we can't always teach the same way we've always taught, that the populations that are coming to us may not always be the same population that we've had in our school, that we need to research and find out what needs they have, how we can better meet those needs. After all, they're our client. They are our customer. So we are accountable to the needs of the children and the needs of the families in that community. And we can only do that by team building and be accepting.
What can the staff do to create and maintain high expectations for the young learners themselves?
Well, I think it all begins with the discourse between the teacher and the parent. In not a top-down kind of thing, but in a two-way street kind of discussion. So maintaining high expectations and explaining to them the goals of the program, what you want them to do when it comes to the support at the home, and what they expect me to do when it comes to the support in the school. Because everything to me is not about me. It's about who the child is and what that child needs and what the family needs. So we have to stop and think about that in ways that we can communicate with the families and say, you know, what strengths do you have at home? What can you help in the school? And what are ways that we can find ways that you can learn about the school system, but yet we're helping you, come in and help us to teach the children in the classroom.
What kind of ongoing professional development is needed for the staff while they're dealing with this transition?
There are so many types of professional development when you're working with English language learners. One of the main things I find teachers say is, I really need to know what to do. What do I do? I have these materials already. Do I need more? What do I do? So the first step in professional development is just learning about a different program model. You may not always be teaching to just English speaking children. You're going to be working with English language learners, which is the same content but a different skill set. So how do I deliver this instruction, make that input comprehensible? What do I need to do to slow down my speaking? Speak real fast. But in the classroom, very slow, very deliberate in how I present, and how I use visuals, and how I use gestures, and how I point and show things or use puppets. And so learning those types of strategies is the what I do piece for teachers. At telling them these are the things that you have to do to make your program successful now. You just have to use different strategies. It's the same content, just delivered a little bit differently.
In general, what kinds of professional development do preschool ELL educators need?
Well, they need to know basically about the population, about the children, about the culture, about the diversity, how to bring in resources and books that display, especially books, children in a variety of situations, because the children that are coming in need to know about themselves, how they fit in the school environment, and how they see themselves portrayed in literature. So using those types of resources, the professional development for them needs to know, how do I use these strategies? Where can I find them? Where can I go and look for them? And of course, again, colorincolorado.org is one of the best ways to find what those are and what the pieces are that are missing if they want to do personal types of professional development. But sitting with the administration, making long-range goals and plans of this is year 1, year 2, year 3 of this transition program, of how we develop these types of activities and strategies over time, because again, those teachers will need practice. It doesn't happen overnight. It needs a really well thought out, sustained plan of implementation.
Well, what about their development in language and content areas?
Well, and that's the important piece, depending on the program that we've spoken about before, whether or not it's a dual language, a bilingual, or an ELL program. The teacher needs to know which is going to be best, which is the one that I'm implementing. How am I going to deliver this best? What do I need to do to create lessons that are comprehensible for children? How do I write my lesson plans now differently? How do I create activities and materials that are going to help the children, not just in the classroom but at home, because that home environment is going to be very important to sustain native language growth so that they can foster their growth in English.
Well, why is it so important for pre-service and new ELL teachers to have a good mentor?
Well, when you're talking about all those different strategies and skills that I say doesn't happen overnight, if you have a teacher in a pre-service teacher in the classroom, which I've had before, it really opens their eyes that first year. There's no way they're going to implement all that right away because there's so much coming at them. There's so many things to know and do. So leading them, helping them in the classroom, using examples, being the mentor, saying, now watch what I'm going to do and pick out 3 strategies that I used. And so as I delivered the lesson, we would debrief and say, okay, explain to me what I did. And why do you think I chose those? What was the population of children? Why did I tailor it that way? Why didn't I choose this instead? So having a pre-service teacher go through that the first year is crucial. Then when they're student teachers, they can really start to themselves implement those, and it kind of turns out the other way. Then it's my turn. Well, why did you choose that? Why did you choose this strategy? Why was that important to that population of students? So then they become the ones that are doing the actual teaching, and you're questioning and helping them. You've modeled for them and work with them. So having that type of 2nd and 3rd year scaffold for them is important. And then when they become 1st year teachers, having an actual mentor who can ask you questions. Well, how's it going? How are you doing? We lose those teachers the first 3 years of teaching because they don't have mentors and they don't have support. They don't have someone to call and talk to, and that's huge. You need to have that link with a veteran teacher.
Well, so walk us through some steps, if you would, of how a mentor guides a new teacher.
Well, one of the things that they do is they talk about what is this plan, what is the curriculum, who are the children. And so in mentoring and guiding teachers, first of all, it's incumbent upon me to model. I model what is good practice. We look at the research, we look at the standards that are available in the disciplinary areas, we look at the curriculum, and I ask a lot of questions and say, what is this important? So then I'm modeling. And then mentoring is also about them demonstrating what they've learned in practice, using that and questioning them, having them reflect and keep a journal every day of what they're doing, what they're writing, and what the difficulties are. And so in the mentoring capacity, to me, it's again over time. You don't want to lose them. I still have contact with student teachers that are 5-year experienced teachers. They still call me and say, what do I do? This is what happened, you know. So when you have this type of experienced teacher sustaining new teachers, we find that we don't lose them as quickly.
Well, who were your mentors? Well,
I actually had some really good mentors. When I first started teaching back in the 70s, there was a program that was called Follow Through. It was the other component of Head Start. And we had teacher mentors that would come in and teach and model for us different types of lessons, and then would come back and watch us afterwards. So I had really good, strong models at the very beginning from teacher mentors that were paid to come in and model for us appropriate bilingual teaching strategies and skills.
Well, is there a teacher you mentored who stands out in your memory?
Well, I have quite a few because they have been very successful, but I have one that I had about 3 years ago, and her name is Denise Caldera. And she was also featured in another series that we did. Excellent. But she was one of my pre-service teachers. She was a student teacher, and she was also the parent of one of my students. She was one of our community parents, and she was just so gung-ho about working with second language learners, English language learners, and she has made a great impact. On the first year of her kindergarten year that she taught, her first school teaching year, she was actually featured in our city newspaper as the beginning teacher, and they followed her throughout the year to see how she was surviving and how she was doing. It was a wonderful program, and it gave other teachers the impetus to say, I can do it. And then she started her own dual language program just this past year at a new school in a pre-K program. So basically the seeds that we planted have now grown in a different place. So I'm very excited for her and the hard work that she's doing with her co-teaching partner.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Becky.
You're welcome.
We've come to the end of this segment, but there's still more of this discussion to come. Please join us for part 4 of this webcast when we'll discuss parent outreach and engagement. You can learn more about English language learners and watch other segments of this webcast at www.colorincolorado.org.
Funding for this Colorín Colorado webcast is provided by the American Federation of Teachers, with additional support from the National Council of La Raza.